What did your roommate do that made you believe she was crazy? I have lived with my roommate Maya for about a year. We are not close friends, but we have always been fine together. 2-bedroom apartment, rent split 50-50, both our names on the lease. A few months ago, Maya started dating a guy named Eric. He seemed fine the couple of times I had met him in passing. Then one morning I overheard him in her room telling her how much he loved that she had her own place. He said it must be peaceful living alone. Maya laughed and said it was. I stood in the hallway waiting for her to correct him. She did not. Later that day I asked her about it. She said when they first started dating, she had told him she had her own place, meaning she did not live with her parents, but he took it the wrong way, and she never cleared it up. I told her to clear it up. She said it was no big deal and would tell him soon. Soon never came. What came instead was a list of little requests that got bigger every week. Could I keep the bathroom counter clear? Could I move my shoes from the door? Could I take my mail off the island? Could I not leave my mug in the sink? The mug was mine. The island was mine. The apartment was mine as much as it was hers. I went along with it the first few times because it felt easier than fighting. Then she started asking me to stay in my room when Eric came over. She said it was awkward to explain. The explanation was one sentence long. I told her no the first time politely. She said I was being difficult. I told her no the second time less politely. She said roommates were supposed to be considerate. I told her considerate was a two-way street and she was not paying my half of the rent. She started leaving notes on the counter on Saturday mornings saying things like, "Please be quiet, Eric is sleeping." She turned down my TV while I was watching it because she said he might hear from her bedroom. No. She moved my toothbrush into the cabinet so it would not be visible when he used the sink. She moved a framed picture of my family off the bookshelf and set it on the floor of my room because she said it broke up the look she was going for. Last Friday she texted me at midnight asking if I could be out by 8 because Eric had brunch with his sister at 10 and it would not be long. I told her I was tired and sleeping in. She wrote back, "Please do not make this weird." I read that line 3 times. I was making it weird. Saturday morning I woke up at 9. I went into my own home to make coffee like every other Saturday. Eric was at the counter pouring a glass of water. He looked up and froze. He said he was sorry. He did not realize Maya had company. I told him I was not company. I told him I lived there. I told him I had lived there the whole time he had been dating her, that my bedroom was the closed door down the hall. My name was on the lease under hers, and we split everything down the middle. He set the glass down. He asked how long we had been roommates. I told him about a year. He asked if I had ever met him before. I told him 3 times, twice when he came to pick her up, and once at a bar where we all ended up by accident. Then Maya came out of her bedroom in her robe, saw us standing there, and the color went out of her face. Eric looked at her and asked if it was true. She tried to laugh it off. She said of course I lived there. She had told him weeks ago, and he must have forgotten. Eric said she had never told him. He said he had spent half a dozen nights in this apartment thinking it was hers alone. He asked what else she had lied about. She started telling him I was twisting things to make her look bad. He kept his eyes on her. He put the glass in the sink. He said he had to go. He picked his keys off the counter and walked out. The door shut and Maya turned on me. She said I had humiliated her, that a good roommate would have helped her out for one morning, that I had ruined the best relationship of her life because I was jealous that she had someone and I did not. I told her she had built a relationship on pretending I did not exist, and that was not a relationship I had any duty to protect. I told her if she wanted to live alone she could pay the whole rent. She slammed her bedroom door so hard a picture fell off the wall. Eric never came back. He blocked her number by Sunday night. By Monday she was telling everyone who would listen that I had ruined her life for no reason. By Tuesday I was getting texts from people I barely knew, asking me why I would do something like that to Maya. She was telling a version where I ambushed her boyfriend out of spite. I was not going to sit around while she rewrote what happened. I had the receipts. Every text she ever sent asking me to hide. Every note she left on the counter. Every request to disappear. When the texts came in, I sent screenshots back with no explanation needed. The midnight text asking me to be out by 8 in the morning. The one that said please do not make this weird. Every person who received them read them and went quiet. Maya was telling a version of events that could not survive 5 seconds of proof. She was counting on nobody asking for my side. And the second someone saw the receipts, the story fell apart. Inside the apartment, things were somehow worse. Maya stopped talking to me completely. She walked past me in the hallway like I was not there. Notes started showing up on the fridge and the bathroom mirror. Hope you are happy. This used to be a nice place to live. I photographed each one with the date and time and kept going about my day. Then the streaming account we shared was logged out on my TV. She had changed the password. I made my own account and moved on. Then my internet went out. The router cable was unplugged from the back of the router. I plugged it in. 3 days later it happened again. Same cable, same router, unplugged clean. I knocked on Maya's door and asked if she had done it. She opened it with her phone in her hand like I was bothering her. She looked at me with the blankest face I have ever seen and said she did not know what I was talking about. Maybe my stuff was just old. My router was 6 months old, and cables do not unplug themselves twice in 1 week. I went back to the living room, plugged it in again, and took a picture of the connection with a timestamp. That night I called Moses, an old friend from college who works in property management. When I was done laying it all out, he said, "Do not let her push you out. Your name is on that lease. She cannot do anything without your signature." He told me to document everything and keep it all in one folder. Then he said, "The second you yell back, she wins." Maya was trying to make the apartment so uncomfortable that I would want to leave on my own. 100 small moves until I broke. He said the best thing I could do was not break. A few days later, I came home to a piece of paper, sitting on the island and Maya at the table, arms crossed, sitting up straight like she had been waiting for me. She said, "I talked to the landlord. I told him the living situation is not working and asked about options." I picked up the letter. It was a notice addressed to both of us acknowledging a complaint about ongoing disputes between tenants and recommending either mediation or early lease termination as possible next steps. She had walked into the building office and told them living with me was a problem. I set the letter back on the island, grabbed my phone, went to my room, and called the building manager directly. He said Maya had come in and described a hostile living environment. Then he said, "Look, I do not take sides, but if one of you wants out, we can discuss breaking the lease early. Otherwise, you both need to figure it out." I told him I had no intention of leaving. I told him I had not created any hostile environment. I told him I paid my rent on time every single month and had never once been the source of a complaint from anyone in the building. He said he would note my position and that if neither of us wanted to leave, the lease would continue as normal. I thanked him and hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from anger. She was trying to get me removed from my own apartment. She lied to her boyfriend, she lied to our friends, and now she was lying to the landlord. That night I sat down and wrote the landlord a calm, clear email explaining my side with every screenshot attached. The notes from the fridge and the bathroom mirror, photos of the router cable unplugged with timestamps, the text messages asking me to hide, to be out by 8, to not make it weird. No name calling, no dramatic language, just facts. I hit send and closed my laptop. Later that night, I heard Maya through the wall on the phone in her room. She was crying, that quiet, controlled kind that means someone is trying to hold it together and losing. I heard her say she did not know what to do. She just wanted me gone. She felt trapped. Then I heard her say Ria's name, Eric's sister. She said, "Do you think his sister would talk to me? Maybe if she understood my side, she could get through to him." I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling. The thing Maya did not know was that Eric had already told Ria everything. I knew this because the Saturday morning Eric was at our place. He had mentioned brunch with his sister. If he told Ria the truth that same day, Maya was about to walk into a conversation she was not prepared for. The next morning, I sent Eric a short message and asked if he had told his sister what happened. He wrote back about 45 minutes later. He said yeah, he told her that same Saturday. She was the brunch he was heading to when he left. I told him Maya might be reaching out to Ria. He responded, "That is bold, even for her." Then a second message came right after. He said, "Ria does not suffer liars. Good luck to Maya. Moses told me not to get involved in that part. Let Maya walk into it on her own. Your job is the apartment." He said every time I hid in my room or tiptoed around Maya, I was giving her exactly what she wanted. I needed to take my space back. Not loudly or aggressively, but quietly and steadily, just by being there. So I got up, went to the prep area, and made breakfast. Eggs, toast, coffee. I left my mug on the counter when I was done because that was where I always left it before all of this started. Then I got the framed picture of my family from my room, the one Maya had taken off the bookshelf and set on the floor because she said it broke up the look she was going for, and put it right back on the shelf. Maya came home that afternoon, passed the bookshelf, and stopped. She said, "You put that back up." I did not look away from the TV. I just said, "It is my shelf too." She stood there a beat longer, and then went to her room without another word. A few days went by, and Maya got anxious. Always pacing, always on her phone. Through the thin wall, I could hear pieces of her voice at night, that pleading sound you use when someone is not giving you what you want, and you are trying not to sound desperate even though you are. She was working on Ria like a project. Then one evening, she came out of her room, opened the fridge without really looking, closed it, and said out loud, "Finally." Just that one word. Then she went back to her room. Ria had agreed to meet her. Maya left the next morning in full makeup and a nice outfit. She even came out and asked me if a certain top looked okay. I said it looked fine. She was going to look great while her entire story collapsed in front of her. She left around noon and the door clicked shut behind her, and it was just me. No tension hanging in the air, no footsteps pacing behind a closed door, no sticky notes on the fridge. I made coffee, sat on the couch, turned the TV to whatever I wanted. I sat there and just breathed. It was almost 2 hours later when I heard the key in the front door. The lock turned and the door opened slowly. No slam, just the door opening and then a pause, then soft footsteps, then the sound of a bag being set on the counter carefully. I looked up from the couch. Maya was standing in the dining area with one hand on the counter, like she needed it to hold herself up. Then she turned around and I saw her face. Her eyes were red and puffy. Her makeup was smudged. Her hands were shaking. She stood there looking at nothing in particular. I did not say anything. I just waited. Then Maya opened her mouth. Her voice came out flat and hollow. She said, "Ria knew everything." I did not respond. Maya took a breath and kept going. She said Ria sat there and let her talk for 10 minutes. Let her tell the whole story without interrupting, without asking questions. Just let her go. And then she said Eric already told her. He told her the morning it happened. He showed her my name on the lease website. She knew about the texts and the notes and all of it. I sat still. I had known this was coming. Maya's jaw tightened. She said Ria asked her one question. She said, "Why did you think lying about your roommate was easier than just telling the truth?" Maya stopped. She pressed her lips together. "And I did not have an answer," she said. "I just sat there. I opened my mouth and nothing came out. She waited and I had nothing." Maya wiped her face with the back of her hand. She said, "She told me Eric is done. He is not the kind of person who comes back after something like this." And Ria said she was not either. That last part hung in the air between us. Ria was not just delivering Eric's message. She was closing her own door too. So Maya had reached out to his sister hoping to find a way back in, and instead she got shut out by both of them in one conversation. I watched Maya stand in our dining area looking smaller than I had ever seen her look. Her shoulders were down, her hands hanging at her sides. I thought this was it. The moment where she finally looked at me and said she was sorry. Admitted she had been wrong from the beginning. That she should never have lied to Eric. Never should have hidden me. Never should have moved my things or written those notes or gone to the landlord or told people I was the villain. I waited for it. Then Maya straightened up. Her shoulders pulled back. Her chin lifted and her expression changed. The sadness drained out of her face and something harder took its place. She looked right at me and said, "This still would not have happened if you had just stayed in your room that morning." I felt the air leave the room. After everything. After sitting across from Ria and hearing the truth laid out in front of her. After being told Eric was gone for good. After having no answer when someone asked her the simplest question in the world. She walked back in here and said the exact same thing she said 2 weeks ago. I stood up from the couch. I did not raise my voice. I looked at her and said, "You sat across from someone who told you exactly what you did wrong, and you walked back in here and said the same thing you said 2 weeks ago. That is why Eric left. That is why Ria will not talk to you. And that is why nothing is going to change for you until you stop pretending this is my fault." Maya stared at me. I could see something moving behind her eyes. Not anger exactly. Something closer to panic. She went to her room and closed the door quietly. No slam. 3 days went by and Maya did not say a word to me. She moved through the apartment like a ghost, coming out only to get food from the counter and going right back. No notes, no unplugged cables, no eye contact. Then Tuesday evening I got home from work, dark and the light over the dining table was on. Maya was sitting there with her hands folded and a printed piece of paper between them. She had been waiting for me. She said, "I found someone to take over your half of the lease. She can move in by the 1st of next month. I just need you to sign." I picked up the paper. It was a lease transfer form she had already filled in. A name I did not know in the blank for the incoming tenant. My name on the line for the outgoing tenant. The signature line at the bottom was empty. She had found someone, gotten the paperwork, filled it out, and sat down at the table like this was a done deal. Like all she needed was my pen. I set the paper back down. I looked at Maya, and I said, "No." Maya blinked. She said, "Be reasonable. This is not working. We both know that." I pulled the chair out across from her and sat down. I said, "You are right. It is not working. Because you lied to your boyfriend. You tried to erase me from my own home. You went to the landlord behind my back. You told everyone I know that I ruined your life, and now you want me to sign myself out of an apartment I pay half the rent on so you can pretend none of it happened." "No." Maya's jaw tightened. She said, "Then what do you want?" Her voice was not sharp. It was tired. I said, "I want you to admit out loud, right now, that none of this was my fault." The room went still. The fridge hummed. The light above the table buzzed the way it always does when it has been on too long. Maya sat there and I could see the fight happening behind her face. Finally she spoke. She said, "You could have handled it differently?" I did not flinch. I said, "That is not what I asked." Another long pause. Maya looked down at the table and pressed her fingers into the surface. Then she said, "Fine. I should not have told Eric I lived alone. I should not have asked you to hide. I should not have moved your things." She paused and I could feel the butt coming before it left her mouth. "But you did not have to tell him the way you did." I said, "I told him the truth when he called me company in my own home. That is the way the truth comes out when you bury it for months. You do not get to be mad at the explosion when you are the one who lit the fuse." Maya's eyes flickered. Something moved across her face that was not a comeback. She opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again, and what came out was not what I expected. She said, "Rhea told me something else. She said Eric had been cheated on before. That is why honesty mattered so much to him. The lying was the thing he could not get past, not the roommate. The lying." She stopped and swallowed. Her hands were flat on the table now, palms down, fingers spread. She said, "I did not know that about him. I never asked." That last part came out so quiet I almost did not hear it. I never asked. 4 words that told me more about Maya and Eric's relationship than anything else she had said in the last 3 weeks. She had spent months building a fake version of her life to show him, and she never once stopped to learn the real things about his. I looked at Maya sitting across from me, and for the first time since all of this started, I did not see blame in her face. What I saw was someone who was finally starting to understand the actual weight of what she had done. Not what I did, what she did. The room stayed quiet for a long time. Then Maya reached across the table and pushed the lease transfer form to the side. She said, "I do not want you to sign that. I do not even know why I printed it. I think I just wanted to feel like I was doing something instead of sitting in my room staring at the ceiling." She took a breath and said, "I am going to look for my own place. I will give you 60 days and find someone to take over my half. You should not have to leave. This was my mess." She was not apologizing. Not really. She was not saying she was sorry for the notes or the lies or the phone calls to people telling them I was cruel. She was not taking back any of the things she had said about me being jealous or spiteful or calculating. But she was taking responsibility for the result. She was saying the person who should leave was her, not me. Her. And she was offering to do it in a way that did not blow up the lease or leave me scrambling. I looked at her and nodded once. Then I said, "Okay, one word." I did not give her warmth. I did not tell her it was fine or that I understood or that I forgave her, because I was not there yet and I was not going to pretend I was. Okay was honest. Okay was enough. Maya stood up from the table. She left the lease transfer form sitting there. She went to her room and the door closed behind her. Not a slam, just a click. I sat at the table alone. My family photo was on the bookshelf right where I had put it back. My mug was sitting on the counter from this morning. My name was on the lease. It had been this whole time. Everything was exactly where it should be. Everything was exactly where it had always been, except now nobody was trying to move it. I picked up my phone and texted Moses. "She is moving out, on her own terms." He wrote back a minute later. "Good, you earned that." I put my phone down, stood up, and poured myself a cup of coffee from the pot I had made that morning. It was cold, but I did not care. I sat back down at the table and drank it in silence. Real silence. Not the heavy kind that comes before a fight. Not the thick kind that sits between two people who are pretending not to see each other. Just silence. The kind that belongs to you when you have finally stopped letting someone else fill it with noise. The kind you earn when you stand in your own home and refuse to leave.